Time for us now to take another look at what's making headlines in the international papers. Alison Sargent is back with us in studio. Alison, I believe this time we're going to start with reactions to those deadly clashes along the Israeli-Gaza border.
Right, Eve, and I want to start actually with two cartoons that highlight really these opposing narratives we're getting from Israel and the Palestinian side. This first one is from the far-right Israeli paper Israel Hayom. You can see that this is sort of how the Israeli government sees these border protests, not Gazans acting of their own accord, but Hamas fighters storming the border using civilians as a shield, as we see there with them strapped around his chest. Very, very different image in London-based pan-Arab paper Al-Araby, Al-Jadid. This is their image of what Palestinians are calling the March of Return. And we can see there a Gazan holding the Palestinian flag above his head. And in his shadow there, it's actually transforming into a key. Now, that symbolizes actually the very real house keys that many Palestinians carry with them to these protests and hand down from generation to generation in the hopes that one day they'll return home and actually use them.
Indeed, a key often seen as the key to their own future.
That's right. That's an interpretation that goes pretty well from this analysis that comes from the same paper. My colleague at our Arabic channel pulled out this article for us. This writer here says that this March of Return is a sign that Palestinians are really taking their destiny back into their own hands. And this writer says, until now, the Palestinian cause was really being defended by larger regional powers, Egypt and Saudi Arabia. But the recent cozying up of Egypt and Saudi Arabia to the United States and the American ally Israel has really changed that. And this writer says it's actually brought Palestinians back to the forefront in negotiating their own destiny.
And of course, Gaza under a severe blockade for over a decade now. Left-wing Israeli paper Haaretz also sees these latest developments as possibly good news for Palestinians.
Right, and they say, technically Israel won these clashes. They didn't have any casualties of their own. No Palestinians did ultimately breach the border, but they killed over a dozen Palestinians and prompted international outcry. And this, according to Haaretz, is where they stand to lose. The paper says Hamas has really given up on scoring any kind of military victory on the ground. They're now fully concentrating all of their energy on the battle for public opinion. And Haaretz says the March for Return is really a clear example of Hamas's change in tactics. And they say if the Israeli government continues responding as it did on Friday, well, that victory that they had is actually going to transform into a defeat. And there's a cartoon from another pan-Arab paper, Al-Quds, that illustrates Haaretz's point. We see there Gaza may have been sort of brought down by the Israeli military, but its bloody hand is still raised up in a V for victory.
Okay, interesting articles and notably cartoons there, Alison. Let's move on now to Korea, where papers are buzzing about this weekend's pop star diplomacy between North and South.
That's right. Those pop stars are on the front page of pretty much all of the Korean papers today. I just pulled out one from the Korea Jungang Daily. The singers may be all smiles there in that photo, but the paper says in its editorial they actually have pretty mixed feelings about these concerts. They say that they understand that the South Korean government wants to promote this upcoming summit with North Korea, but they say, the government should really be wary of spreading the North's propaganda, especially since, the paper points out, this meeting is not supposed to have denuclearization on the agenda. So in short, the Jungang Daily says, South Korea should forget the singers and focus on the nukes. And you can see these two different sort of sides to North Korean foreign policy illustrated in a cartoon by Patrick Chapat for the New York Times. We see diplomacy represented by that green train that he took to Beijing last week, and the nuclear program. And Kim Jong Un is asking himself, which one am I going to ride today? So sort of getting at the idea that just because he picks one day doesn't mean he's not going to pick the other one the next day.
Pretty cynical penmanship there. But another South Korean paper is pointing out that the North is quite two-faced when it comes to things even like Korean pop music.
Yeah, the paper says that Kim Jong Un's decision to invite all of these singers to North Korea is sort of baffling for many in South Korea because the country, North Korea, is usually so strict about regulating and preventing people from accessing outside music and entertainment. For example, the paper reports that when young people in North Korea are caught with South Korean music and entertainment, they're actually sent to labor camps to get re-educated. And the paper says, according to sources, though, close to North Korea, these concerts are have been approved because they're only being attended by the elite members of the military. So basically, Kim Jong Un has handpicked people he feels can handle being exposed to outside influence and still remain loyal to him.
Okay, and yet I believe that the Kim Jong Un family are quite into Western culture and movies, but there you go.
They probably have their secret stash.
Alison Sargent, thanks a lot for that wrap-up of the international papers. Well, still